you want to be a champion?
Welcome back, ladies and gents, to another episode of the SUPERCOACH Tragics podcast. I'm your host, Dan. With us be tonight, Glenn, mate. It's like I tell you all the time now, doing 2 podcasts a week. It's good.
Yeah, I can't get enough of Dan, bro. Enough of 2 nights a week. I feel like I've been cheated for 6 months, so it's good to see you again, bro.
I love it. It's so good that you're back doing these podcasts. It's really good. So,
Yeah.
How you been anyway, mate? I know you've been flat out.
Yeah, good. I'm always good, mate. I couldn't be happier. Everything's rolling well. I'm looking forward to some rugby league, mate. It's been nice to have a little bit happening, and we got the stuff coming up with the Indigenous games, so I'm excited.
Yeah, it'll be good to see a few more. I know there was a few teams got named, all the teams got named today, but there's a few more full strength sides there. I know the Sharks and the Raiders put together much stronger teams, which is really cool. So we'll see some. I was hoping to see Horsburgh. Unfortunately, didn't get named, but other than that, it's a pretty solid Raiders team. Looking, it is the Raiders. I reckon.
Tarpany didn't get named either, did he?
Who's he? Sorry.
Tarpany didn't get named either.
Yeah, I don't think I haven't. I had a quick look and just saw the ones I was interested in. I wasn't even interested in Tarpany, so I haven't even looked at him.
The reason I looked was because Horse wasn't there, and I thought, I needed to see who else was missing to try and justify who else is missing.
Good point. Yeah. Yeah. No, looking forward to watching. There's a few more games this week, so it's going to be just rather than just the 2, there'll be a few more. So, and the All-Star on Saturday night too, which is exciting. So, maybe you might need to do a look into the schedule and maybe reschedule the Saturday night pod so we can have a good watch ourselves. So maybe look at doing it on a Sunday, or we'll plan it later anyway. We'll plan a discussion right now. It sounds a bit odd. All right, let's get started, guys. So let's start off with our overall group. So thanks to our partners this year, we have some amazing prizes on offer for the overall group. First prize being $500 cash and a SUPERCOACH Champions ring. Second prize, $100. Third prize being $50. We also have a great prize for the highest individual round score throughout the year. So whoever gets the highest score across the whole year in their single round will receive $100. None of this would be possible if it wasn't for the people that we have supporting this, and the companies that are amazing people behind the prize money there. So Leg Up Project also doing amazing work, which is fantastic. Kalahani doing some great work with disability support, helping you help yourself. And Plus Fitness in Blackslands. Jump down, go see Carly and the team there. Shop 7, number 6, Hope Street, Blackslands. I think you can refer a friend, get 2 weeks free. Great, good deals going at the moment. So thank you very much. And lastly, if you want one of these awesome SUPERCOACH Champion rings for your private head-to-head league, visit supercoachchampion.com. You make sure to use Tragics25 as your code and receive a 10% discount. The group code is 208753. If we don't get through that, if you don't remember that from this part of the podcast, you'll see it scrolling across the screen throughout the podcast. So thanks, guys. Glenn, should we get started, mate? I'm keen to get started. We're talking Manly and Storm today. We'll start with Manly. So let's have a quick look here. Here's the team I got, mate. So predicted lineup, we got Turbo. This team, I reckon, pretty came close to naming itself. We've got Tom Travojevic, number 1. Jason Saab, number 2. We had Talatau Kula, number 3, with Ruben Garrick in the centres partnering him. This one was probably the only one that I was a bit nervous about, was Lehigh Hopewadi on that wing. I think he's fighting with a few others to get that spot, but I reckon he should get it. Brooksy and Cherry Evans in the halves. Taniel Peseka, number 8, in the front row there. Jake Simpkins looked like he's getting that hooker spot, while Lockie Croker is out till round 4, injured. Josh Alloway, I can't never pronounce his name. Josh Alloway, number 10.
Yep.
Hamole Olakawatu, number 11, with Ben Travojevic on the other edge. His brother Jake in number 13. Gordon Tancum Tong, I'll get his name right. Brad would be so angry because Brad loves this bloke. So Brad from SUPERCOACH, from off the bench, would be pretty furious at me for that. Yeah, so Nathan Brown in the 15 with Tafoa Sipley in number 17. And if you're watching on YouTube, you'll have the screen right there. So what are your thoughts there, Glenn?
Yeah, I think you're spot on, bro. I agree. I mean, Talau could come in for Hopewadi. There's possibilities there. He could even move into centres and Kyler out to wing. I don't know, but that's about the only one I see. There's a lot of interest there, though, in that side, mate. I'm absolutely loving a few of them, especially Turbo and Garrick. I know their price points are pretty pricey. I think at $8.75 for Turbo for it, with an average of 89.4 last year. And I mean, there were games he didn't even look like he was in top gear, and he was still scoring huge points. And anytime he's in the side, Garrick's always worth owning. Olakawadu's another, but they're all priced at their price points. I see a big year for Manly. I have them in the top 4, possibly 5th. It's out of Broncos and Manly out of the 4th spot for me.
Yeah, Manly, if they can stay healthy, they've got a pretty solid team here. I think Brooksy, not an option for SUPERCOACH, but actually did do his job pretty well last year in the number 6 for Manly. I think he was decent at that price point it was last year, so it wasn't the worst option to jump on at the start of the year, but I think now he's priced out for what he can deliver for SUPERCOACHs. Some good names here, though. Like there's a couple of options there as well, like Gordon Chen Kum Tong on the bench. I'm not an option for SUPERCOACH, I'm more saying another option that could be replaced with he's a fringe player. There's other options there that could pretty much take that spot, depending on what they're going to go with when it comes to their utility player. So maybe they'll have a different player there that can jump into that spot. So let's have a quick look at some stats. I think the biggest upside for this Manly team when it comes to SUPERCOACH is the draw. The draw doesn't really say too much, except for when you look at the first 5 games, 4 of them are in 4 Pines, or more commonly known as Brookvale Oval. And we all know what Manly can do with Brookvale.
The one player I do like, bro, that's at a price point that's interesting is Burbo. Now, I know there's a lot of people who'll be sitting there going, never again. I've owned him and he's got injured twice. Literally, the first in the game I got him, he got injured and had to hold him. That was the year before last. And then last year, I remember doing the same thing. But he's still at 4.19, an interesting prospect in a side that's a ceiling club.
Yeah, doing also being a dual centre wing second rower at that price, ideally playing 80 minutes in the second row. If he can stay fit, and it's always the case though, he's really good when he's. I've picked him up a few times, and I never say the never again. I don't like saying that, because if you say that never again, you limit yourself to what you can achieve later on. And a prime example is, do you remember Campbell Graham when he first came to NRL? No one wanted him. He was a cheapie that did poorly, and then he got put into a certain spot at his position, his favourite position, and then became a gun. You always forget people can improve, and I think you never put anyone on the never again list. That's a little tip that I'm never going to learn. You just keep your heart out of SUPERCOACH and use your head. So,
mate, if he's available centre wing.
Yeah,
you sure
good
of that?
option. Yeah.
Yeah, I just swapped him. I just brought him in.
We'll swap him out after the show. I know that, but
I brought him in
live trades.
Yeah, I did. There he is. I just swapped that Jesse McLean because I know he's not going to probably play, and I've just put him in my centre wing because I just think at centre wing, second rower, it's consistent points, and you know what I'm saying. I like that.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, so let's talk a few stats here. So we'll start with the guy, the man himself, Tommy Turbo. So he's priced at 89.4. So his average is a lot bigger in past seasons. Like his example, I think it was 2021. He averaged like 130 or something stupid across the whole season, across 15 games. So paying $8.75 for him. Against the Cowboys, he averages 85 points there, so a little bit below what you're paying for him. Against New Zealand, the average is 93, so a little bit overs. Raiders 93 again. Against the Eels, the average is 82. In the round 5 game against the Storm, he averages 80. I thought averages 50.9. That on paper isn't like the biggest score. It's not nothing really special. But what I will say, got some even more detailed stats right here. So if you look at
And what makes him good is he's a captain option for many games.
Yeah. I will say one thing though. If you look at Turbo, obviously we mentioned earlier the draw starts off with 4 out of 5 games are in Brookvale. So out of the 7 home games he played last year in Brookvale, Turbo averaged 101 across those 7 games. So at some point, you've got to take that home game consideration as a potential average booster there. So if he does average that 101 points, you're paying 11 points less for a guy that can average over 100 points. So I like that one.
And he's also a player that can get you 180. You know what I mean? He's done it many times, got those big scores over 150.
Yeah, I actually had a look at his when I saw these average in 2021. I was like, I had to have a look at that and relive that. And I was like, first game you got 117, second game you got 140, third game you got like 150, you got 229 at one point. I'm like, watch this go. Oh, I remember these days. That was good fun. So
yes, yeah, that was the year that they changed the way the ruck was played. Remember, and it was all that fast year. It was the highest SUPERCOACH scores. Is that the year you're talking about?
Yeah, so it was the year after that COVID interruption year. So that
yeah.
So it was definitely a big one. Looking at in the second row here, we got Haumole Olakau'atu priced at priced at 68 there. So you're paying 665,000 for him. He averages 69 against the Cowboys, who plays in round 1, 58 against New Zealand in round 2, 57.5 against the Raiders, 49 against the Eels, and 52.9 against the Storm. So that's a pretty good option. The Storm isn't really a scary one when you think about it, because the Storm, bigger forwards, the Olakau'atu tends to get pretty fired up in those games, and he like the muscle throw his weight around. But here's another one for you. So Ola, in his 8 games last year, averaged 69.5 in Brookvale at 4 Pines Park there. So you're paying 68 for him. You're going to get a pretty safe average there, you think, just slightly over what you're paying for him. And another very solid second row, probably one of the best second row options you can get this year.
Yeah, behind Eli Katoa, I think he would be the next in line. That's not with a lot of thought process, but those are 2 that definitely are up there with Yo.
Yeah, definitely, 100%. And probably when it comes to like Olakau'atu and Eli Katoa, they at least have a bit more of a ceiling. With Yo, you're going to be guaranteed between like 60 and 80, 90 points every single week. But with these guys, you'll get between 60 and potentially upwards of 100. So there's a decent ceiling there as well with Olakau'atu.
Yeah, absolutely.
And here we also have Ruben Garrick. I like Ruben Garrick. So I don't like to pay up for my centre wings up early. However, I think he's actually quite unders for what he can achieve. So you look at you're paying for a 69.5 average, so you got him with 680, and you look at the other options around that level, not the price point, around that level. So the Garrick, the guns, the centre wing. You got Carraz, who's up there, way higher, a bit more expensive. I think I prefer the safety of having a goal-kicking try scorer, and he's a lot cheaper. And he looks like, let's have a look at the round 1. He's up against the Cowboys, where he averages 70.6, 63.4 against New Zealand, 66 against the Raiders, 88 against the Eels, and 54 against the Storm. That's not a bad average against the Storm for a centre wing.
And one of the things, I have Garrick in my side, and what I look at if I'm buying a centre wing early is, can they match my second rowers? And he's one that can. Do you know what I mean? His base stats are around 40 from memory. He's got good PPM and he's a goal kicker. Turbo and Ruben Garrick were 2 of my first pick.
Yeah, I think I love having someone like Garrick partnering up with a Turbo, who has fullback as well. So
yeah, that's right.
You can definitely see them giving each other points and helping each other get points. potentially stealing points from each other, but they've done it for a long time. They work pretty well together. So the difference with home games with Garrick isn't as significant, I don't think. So he played 9 home games last year and got a 69.3 average. So slightly above what he's looking at there. In saying that, there was some bit more trickier teams that were playing against, Melbourne, for example. They didn't play Melbourne at home. So, yeah, I like Garrick. If you're going to go one gun option, I think Garrick at his price point is the one you want to go. Agree? All right. Okay, this is going to be hot take time for me. This is I haven't even told Glenn. I'm surprising Glenn with this one. Daly Cherry Evans, 645, paying for a 66 average. I can see a world where I would start DCE at the start of the year as a pod instead of Cleary. That's a crazy hot take. Okay.
Is that Cleary with Hines, you mean? So Hines DCE?
If you're going to go with if you've got the cheapies available in halfback, I think you could actually go Cleary as your Cleary. It's a bit risky, I know that, but hear me out. So, what do you think with the matchups that Cleary has? He can average over that first 5 games.
I don't like Cleary because his matchups are really tough for the first 5 rounds, and he's coming back from a pretty significant injury. But Cleary's Cleary, mate. He is consistently good and can score well in any game. So I'm scared not to own him. I'm not starting him. I'm starting Hines and the young Souths one. I prefer my halves to be goal kickers, to be honest with you. But DCE does have some big games in him, and I don't hate the idea. Save $1 here, add $1 there, and that's what you're talking about. You're talking about a little bit cheaper here, and it allows you to upgrade somewhere else, and you can get your points elsewhere. So don't hate the idea.
Yeah, so have a look at DCE's average in his 8 games he played in Brookvale last year, 76.7.
Yeah, nice.
So I can see someone like Cleary at the start of the year averaging around 80, 85, around that mark there.
Yeah.
The 150 odd thousand, 200,000 that you're going to save, you could have, instead of having Cleary and, let's say, Cleary and Arthurs from Brisbane, you can have DCE and Garrick, an example. Does that combo bring in more points at the start of the season? And with that price point that DCE is, if you offload him around the round 5, maybe round 6 mark, and upgrade to Cleary then, when you feel safer that Cleary has recovered from that shoulder injury, I can see that a world where that could be a good way to get a head start, get that extra gun and centre wing that you need, or else where you can go second row if you want to be safer, or you can get a third fullback in your flex position. I
definitely agree. I think that when you're looking to save money in a position, what you got to say to yourself is, all right, so let's say he averages 10 points less than Cleary, righto? But you can make those 10 points up elsewhere with that extra $1 or more. So, and it's just, that's the $1 million question. It's the or more, where you invest that money elsewhere, whether or not that enables you to make up the difference in those points that someone otherwise couldn't because they've afforded a Cleary or a Hines. So I hear you. Another one we want to talk about before I forget, or you may well anyway, is Saab. Saab always does really well with Turbo in the side and at Brookvale on that right wing. Turbo does go down both edges and he does put away those wingers. So he could be an interesting pod to start with as well. Although I think there's a bit of value in centre wing this year. And I'm personally going Garrick for the goal kicking, but I did consider Saab.
Yeah, no, I look at Saab, some of the Saab stats against his opponents that he's playing in the first few rounds. So the last time he played against the Cowboys, he got 111 points. So pretty handy little score, and that was at in Queensland. Sorry, that was in Townsville. And then against New Zealand, his last score against them was 88 points. The time before that, 120. So he has a decent matchup for Saab, and if Turbo is fully fit, we all know that Turbo and Saab's that guy that'll be able to support ready to go. So and then he isn't that bad against Canberra too. He averages about 45, but his last couple of games he got 60, and he got 21 in round 9. But then he got 60 points again in their last game against Canberra. So not a bad option there, but definitely one that you need. Like, if I'm going to do something stupid, like go DCE instead of Hines or Cleary, which is I haven't even been sold on that. I don't could carry my balls around in a shovel in a wheelbarrow that big. I'm not sure if I can do it, but I really like the idea of going balls for the wall and doing it. But if I was to make a risk like that, there's no way I'd also make a risk of having someone like Saab in my team that can also score a very nice 11 points for you on as well. So,
well, let me play devil's advocate in another way, is that I have both questions around Hines and Cleary. Cleary based on draw and coming back from injury, Hines playing a second fiddle role to Trindle. So there are question marks around either. So you could very well come out in front or even on par, for less money. So there is a way around it. You know what I mean? Like it could work, mate. So don't shoot it down too quick. Like I don't hate the idea. I just think that there's a few around. In fact, I really like Trindle as well at 5'8", but we'll get to them.
Yeah, I know it's like in my head, and this is one of those things where like you go with your gut. My gut's telling me to do it, but I am like also going mental. There's a battle up here as well, whether I should. And I had this argument, not an argument. I had this heated discussion with the boys from off the bench on their podcast, and I did a couple of weeks ago about the same thing, and they were just like, they were in shock that I was even contemplating it, and that's the kind of thing that I kind of want. I want to have.
But that's the problem with some of those people, and I'm not saying them per se, but some people are so rigid on certain players. It's the same in cricket. You're like, oh, you're mad if you don't own this player. And then when you don't own that player and you do well on another player, they're like, oh, how did you do well on that and get away with this? And it's like, because Tyrone, my son, used to do it all the time. He used to bench Tedesco and bench different players, and people used to think he was off chops. But he used to realise that the averages between like versus the Storm, all those sort of games. And it paid off for him sometimes. So trust your gut, mate. Don't listen to what the naysayers say, because they're all playing. Like, too many people play the same team, bro, and they're never going to win Supercoach. They might score well, make top 1,000 even, but are they going to win Supercoach? The person that wins Supercoach is going to do something unstructured, something different to what everyone else is doing. That's why they win. So, and you've had a good season. I've had one like that. I was top 20 for a whole year where it was just a couple of simple differences. That could be your simple difference, bro, that starts off the season. Then you jump on what everyone else has got in those players, So don't sell yourself short, bro. I don't hate the idea.
Oh, looking at it right now. I'm looking at Cleary's stats right now. They're looking pretty good, actually. So, not Cleary. No, I'm Daly Terry Evans. My apologies. Let's not dwell on my team for now. We'll think of something else. I'm in that little contemplating mode now. So, anyone we're looking at? Actually, there's one player. I know you brought up Saab, who's a bit risky but can throw a high score in there. Someone who's a little bit less risky that I don't mind, but also hasn't got the big ceiling score is tell us how cooler. Decent base for a centre, but doesn't really get those big scores.
Yeah, I don't know, but I like Koala. I don't really like centres early. I prefer wingers. They run the ball back. They got more chance of getting the tries. But Koala's quick, in a ceiling side. Like I said, it's a ceiling club. So, any one of those backs could be the one that runs a mark early, and his price point's a little lower at $4.55. So, points per dollar. I mean, he averaged 46 last season. It's a little bit low behind some of the others, but, Saab 54, Garrick 69.5, Hopewadi 60.02. I really like Hopewadi. I wished he was a little cheaper, but I don't know how good his job security is. I really like Hopewadi. I think he's a really good player.
Yeah, definitely got a bit of a firecracker there. He's like, you got that X factor. They kind of had that. They had that all around the park, really, on the back line. The X factor kind of guys. Cooler kind of stabilizes them a bit more in defense. Amazing in defense. He does that kind of a lot of tackles. But I'm going to play. I just either one that brought up Cooler, but devil's advocate. If you're looking for that basey, solid center wing, would you rate Ben Trebojevic at $4.19, which is about $30K cheaper?
I rate him enough to have just put him in my side. As I said to you, one of the formulas that I used to use that works very well for me was I stacked a pack, and then in the center wing, all I wanted out of my center wing was 200 points, right? Anything above that was a bonus. So if I could average 50, out of my 4 that was starting, especially with cheapies and stuff, that was a huge win. So I know it sounds, that's honestly what I used to do is that was where I wanted to average 200 points at the early. So having a second rower or a fullback like a Connor Tracy, those 2 players stick out to me. But there's one that's around the same price point we're about to talk about from Storm, who is playing centre, who I don't hate, except for they've got a bye in round 2. And there's so many in that team I like.
Well, I think that's a nice little clean segue, unless you've got anything else about Manly we want to talk about.
No, you've got in here on the watch list, TKO. If he is to get up to 50, 55 minutes at his price point, from memory, it was 453. I was sort of a little bit more than I anticipated. But, I mean, TKO, we know what he can do. He's a big body. He's got a slight step on him, and he's a good defender. So I like the part that you've got him as a watch list, bro, because he will start from the bench, but I'll be watching closely to see what kind of minutes he plays, or even if he does pump himself into that side over Alloy A and Alloy A goes back to the bench, or even a Paseka.
Yeah, based on history, that's why I put him on the watch list, just based on history. I'm not sure if he even gets a spot in that team, frankly. I think, but if a few injuries come down and he starts getting a chance and he can do what he did back in the day, he's a goal kicking player.
I was about to say that. Garrett goes down, he can read the play.
That's right. So that was like our when we couldn't have Corey Parker, our god, we had to have Takiaho, our goal kicking second rower.
On Manly, the last thing I wanted to say is Manly don't play. They do play round 12 and they have a bye round 10. Round 9. Sorry, round 9. So they have a bye, but that leads nicely into round 12. So Manly do play in that round, and they play versus the Eels.
Yeah, having a late bye really is beneficial. So if there's any good options in the team, and I think Manly's one of those teams that has a lot of good options, you can load up a little bit more. Unlike the team we're about to talk about, where they have a bye in round 2, which is unfortunate because there's some great options there as well.
Absolutely. Actually, I just remembered to share that. I shared it everywhere except for I'm just sharing out the live. Sorry, mate.
No, you're right, mate. Let's talk. I'll go through the predicted team for the Melbourne Storm.
So
we'll start off with number 1, the fullback, Ryan Papenhuyzen. Hopefully has a good season, free from injury, because he deserves it, the young fella. So Will Warbrick, number 2, with Jack Howarth after a pretty decent solid season last year. He's in number 3 with Nick Meaney in number 4. Xavier Coates, number 5, with Cam Munster and Jerome Hughes at number 6 and 7. Stefano from the Tigers coming over to start at prop for the Storm. Harry Grant, number 9. Josh King in the number 10 with Sean Blore, Eli Katoa in the back row. We've got Trent Liero, number 13. Tyron Wishart, Adam Donald, Christian Welch, and Tui Kamakamika on the bench. How do you like this one, Glenn?
Yeah, I do. Christian Welch, I read something about him retiring. Did you?
He's got his decision to make. So
he's got his decision to make.
Yeah, so they haven't made anything official yet, but he's had his 7th concussion in like a very short period of time. So I think the press conference was saying he's got to make some big decisions over the next couple of days, and we'll hear from him soon. So
that's a very good football side.
Yeah,
and there's literally in every position a player you could pick. I mean, let's start at hooker with Harry Grant. Front row, Stefano. I mean, Stefano running off Harry Grant. What a fucking dream. And then we go to second row. I mean, Elise Katoa. He's an absolute weapon. Then you go to your halves, right? I mean, Hughes, I think he's priced at his price point. I wouldn't be touching, especially with Munster and Papenhuyzen back in the side. However, Munster, again, at his price point at 609, good value. Then you move down to centre wing. You got Jack Howarth, points per dollar makes sense. Nick Meaney kicking goals, who's been what was it? He averaged at 63, which isn't too bad. Pretty much. And then of course the gun, Ryan Papenhuyzen, who I think's a spud this year. Everyone should stay away from him. I don't think he's any good. He's never had a good start to a season.
Oh yeah, so let's try talking everyone off him because he's in my team. So
in mine too, mate, all over him like a rash.
Yeah, I think to bring up that Welsh thing as well, because I didn't change his team since I think it was about 3 days ago. So, but there is a young fella named Lazarus Varlepu, who's likely to replace Welsh if that was to happen. So keep an eye on Lazarus Varlepu. It might be a nice bottom dollar cheapie. I haven't checked the price yet, but could be going on the bench for the Storm, which we all love a good old bench front rower there. Nice slow burners to have in our team. So.
The problem with Storm forwards when they're early introduced is they don't get a lot of minutes. So Bellamy has a real thing about when he brings new players into the sides, especially forwards, they don't get a lot of minutes. I mean, the only one I ever saw was Josh King that seemed to get early minutes, but a lot of the others, they don't. So that could be the only worry. But it's a watch and see, and if he does get the minutes that we would hope for, what a beautiful trade down.
Yeah, someone like we've got a few risks with some players. We've got, let's say, a lot of people out there have got Royce Hunt in their team, for example. If he shifts the bed, like I think he will, frankly, I'm not saying he will be bad. I just think he won't be as good as everyone thinks he's going to be. You can easily downgrade to Valahu if he does a good enough job. So it's good to have that option there available to us.
Yeah, he's a bit of a plotter. I don't see a lot of upside to him. He'll make you a little bit of money. I think people have got. I mean, the one thing about front row is I don't get overly concerned with that. I've even ran enough at. I run 3 second rowers with the buys because you need a third, and then one nuff. So it can. I mean, with the buys, you've always usually got someone you can use as a loop anyway. But to VC, I mean.
All right, let's get on to our. These are the stats that I really shine for me. I look at this draw here, and I initially had I can't remember who it was. I had someone else. I think it was Blake Brayley as my hooker to try and go a little bit cheaper to save some money. When I looked at these stats in the face, oh my god! Like Harry Grant, you're paying $691 for him, which is a 70.7 average. Against the Eels, he averages 86.6. Against Panthers, 62.4. Dragons, he averages 105, and then against the Raiders, he averages 73. So he's actually an average at those games. He's 11 points more in value than what you're paying for him. If you look closely, the hooker across here, the hooker, very, very good draw against hookers against their opponents, and he's the best hooker in the game. So it's the best draw, best matchup for any hooking team, and you've got Harry Grant, the best hooker. It's a match made in heaven, mate.
Second best hooker, mate. Apai Coruscant would be number 1.
No, he got shit when he went to Tigers.
No, I agree with you. He averages 70, and I think there's all upside for Grant this year. I think Stefano in that side is, huge. I mean, what's going on with Nass, by the way?
Yeah, I haven't heard anything about Nass. Oh, he got suspended. That was it. Yeah. So new recruit Stefano will slot straight into the prop place in place of suspended Nelson Asopoulos Solomona. So he is suspended to start the season.
Could you imagine having Stefano and Nass as the 2 front rowers coming at you? Bloody Nora. One's got quick foot, one just is a beast. Well, bro, Welsh is out. Thompson just said.
So bro just confirmed that he's gone. It's over. So
thank you, bro.
Yeah. So so Nass suspended. So let's have a look. I'm just gonna have a look back actually and see who the other front row was. Bear with me.
A lot of love for this team, bro. It's a shame they've got to buy round 2, but geez, the upside to that, and they don't play in the buy round 12 from memory either.
So let's have a look. So looking at this team now, you think Stefano keeps that front row spot with
I do.
Yeah, and then you got Josh King there. I can see a world where Josh King could get moved to 13, but I think they love the arrow there. Maybe maybe Nat starts from the bench like he has put an impact play in the past.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that the 2 front rowers will be the way you said. I think King will play bigger minutes though than Stefano. There could be a world where Stefano plays 20 on, then 20 at the end, maybe 50, 45 to 55, but if he plays anything over 50, he's unders, and he's a try-scoring front rower. I mean, I had him. I had Grant, I had Stefano, I had Katoa, I like Pappenhausen, I like Munster. And then I realised that round 2 was going to be pretty horrible for me if I went with what I wanted to do.
It's a bit risky to have. What I've done, I've got 2 players in my team from the Storm. But what I've done, I've also planned for. For example, I got Tino for Storm Malawi in my team. So I know that as soon as I rest Harry Grant, I can put the reserve onto Tino. That's one position covered for that second game when he's gone. And then I look at my center wing. Right. I got on my center wing. I've got someone like Billy Smith. Do you know what? 1 week I'll happily play him to let Pappenhausen have that buy round as well. So as long as you have that coverage for when they're gone, I think you're fine. I think when you start getting 3, 4, it's a bit harder.
Yeah, I got White on the bench. I did have Tino, and I like Tino a lot. And I got rid of Stefano, but I got Elliot Katoa and I've got Pappenhausen. I just like the upside of both of those players. I really like Grant and Stefano too, though. And I mean, if they didn't have round 2, I'd own them both. But I've chucked Connor Watson up into my into my hooker role. I just think points per dollar he makes sense, and based on what I'm seeing at the Roosters, he could play big minutes.
Yeah, and he definitely does some decent. Decent scores as a hooker as well when he plays with Mitch. He's a much more agile hooker, and he does jump out pretty nicely. So I do like Connor Watson option, and also the dual position as well, where you can move
that's the
hooker.
That's what I like about him. Yeah, me too.
All right, let's have a look at the next one. We got Jerome Hughes, 805,000 price on a season, his best season for a long time. 82.3 average. He averages 63 against the Eels in round 3. He has a 45 average against the Panthers, 81 average against the Dragons, and 55 against the Raiders. So this is a no-brainer for me to just avoid Jerome Hughes to start the season. I think he had a career year last year. I'm not sure you can afford to bring him in with all the other options around, Glenn.
Yeah, with Pappenhausen and Munster out of the side, and it was very clear. I mean, although Hughes scored well in the last few games, if you watch the game closely, the ball went to Munster a lot and to Pappenhausen, not to Hughes near as much. And as a Hughes owner, I was quite frustrated by it, although he happened to get a couple of some points late, so it sort of made up for it. But I agree with you. 805, he's priced above what I think he's at. He could be a pickup later in the year, when he comes down a bit. Or if Munster gets injured or Pappenhausen, either of those players go down. There's beautifuls. I mean, Wishart comes in and that, what's his name? I've forgotten his name, the other fullback.
Funalunga.
Yeah, him.
Yeah.
So if those 2 come back into the side, Jerome Hughes becomes relevant. Either one of those even goes down.
Yeah. I think moving on to, I think this is a good buy. Cam Munster had a pretty average year last year, rattled with a bit of injury there. I think he's a lot healthier this year, had a bit of a preseason under his belt. So I think he's unders what he can perform. I think in the past he's been number 158, and we know that what he can do. I think he has the potential to go back to being number 158 if injury allows it, injury-free season allows it. So I think when you're paying 609,000 for a guy that averaged 62 last year on a pretty poor year. If you look at the first round up against the Eels, he averages at 68.9. He averages 58 against Panthers, which is a bloody good average against Panthers of the last 2 years. 65 against the Dragons and 66 against the Raiders. So you're barring the Panthers in that round 3 clash, he's beating what you're paying for him in his scores. You'd assume if he gets that. He gets his form back, which I reckon he will this year.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm a huge Munster fan. He's definitely unders. The only thing I would say is he's a little bit older. He's carrying a few more niggles, and but he's just one of them players that plays at that pace where he can't help himself. He's always in and amongst it. He's an incredible player, Munster, and I don't disagree with you that he'll be one of the top 5/8s this year, if not the top 5/8 as far as Supercoach goes. And even that, I mean, I see them number 1 winning the minor premiership and even winning the premiership this year. I think that is a good football team, well-rounded, and the addition of Stefano is just, and what the best spine in the comp by a country mile.
Now I know you like to do this, but I'm going to do it now instead. I'm going to play devil's advocate. With a team like this, that's full of superstars that can score Supercoach around the point, is there fear that you'll have Munster get 66 one day and Hughes get 70, and then is there going to be games where Hughes will get 150 and then Munster gets a 40? Like, is there going to be games like that, you think?
Yeah, there is actually the possibility of players stealing points off each other. The other thing that happens with Storm quite often is when they get ahead quite a bit in games, the coach can pull players like Munster, Grant, those kind of players. And Munster seems to be one of the ones he does grab, based on his niggles and age, I guess. So they're the fears, that are genuine around Munster. But generally, if he's been pulled off, he's probably scored a good score anyway based on them being ahead. So, I can hear you still.
Yeah, that's right. All right. So what I'll do now is I'm going to go to one of my favorite picks of the year, if you can afford to get him in. That's Eli Katoa, 717,000 second row. Price on an average of 73.3. First game he averages against the Eels 79.5, which is above what you're paying for him. And then against the Panthers, he averages 55. 73 against the Dragons, and I was surprised to see a 48 against the Raiders there. I think a bit unusual that he got a small average there, but still, I think looking at the teams themselves, I don't see the Raiders holding him back with the team that they do have, unless because I think their back rows have changed a little bit over the last few years, so I'm not sure if he can keep that average up. I think he might go a bit higher there against the Raiders.
Well, that's a case of what we were talking about a second ago where other players stealing points. Hughes was getting a lot of points in that game. I remember that game against the Raiders, and also Wishart picked up quite a few points in that game. So that kind of affected the second rowers. And what other time was spent under the post, because they win by a fairly good score. But I'm all over him. I think his price point is a little off-putting. There's a couple that are a bit cheaper, even 100K cheaper, that could still be good value. But I just love the ceiling of Qatar, and he's added an offload to his game. He doesn't just score tries, tackle bust, but he offloads as well, and he defends like a demon, mate. Love the guy. I'm all over it.
Cool. What I'm going to do, I'm going to just put up a question from one of our viewers. So this is the question. This guy's he's new to SUPERCOACH. So Derek, he's asked, are you able to change your team weekly, or is it set up for X amount of weeks before you can change your team around? I'm new to this SUPERCOACH with the rules, etc. So, Glenn, I know you're pretty good when it comes to explaining the simplicities of the game. You want to answer this one?
Yeah, so the team that you pick's a team that you got, bro. You can change your team 2 players a week. That's it. And you actually have, how many boosts do we get?
It's
4, is it? Five
Four.
boosts. So you get 2 trades around, bro, every week. So you can only change 2 players in 2 positions, and you can use 5 boosts through the year, which enables you to have 3 trades. And a lot of players that are pretty skilled at the game usually burn them up early, because the objective of the game early, mate, is about making money. You want to get points, but cash is your objective, so you can get the best team you can possibly make. So stick to looking at the break evens early. Watch our podcast each week, get a bit of hint. We'll actually show a couple of sides. We're going to show your side, Dan, or I'll show mine and what it's at now. Next week, I'll show my side for newbies out there. And it's never. I always change my team a lot around Team Risk Tuesday, but it'll give you the basis of a team to give you some kind of idea to what to work off. Beautiful question, bro.
No, that's what we're trying to do. You get more people involved in the game, so having people that are starting off.
Absolutely, yeah.
But yeah, like there's more detail involved and stuff like that. But jump on the Facebook group and ask some questions in that group as well. We'll happily answer in the comment section. But there's no stupid questions. We all started this at one point, and we're all new at one point. So jump in and.
Have we got a rate my team thing up yet, Dano?
There is one. What I'll do after the podcast, I'll give it a bit of a bump and put it back to the top of the feed again. So
yeah, pin it.
Yeah,
throw your side up in there, mate, and we'll have a look-ski for you, and we'll see what we can do to give you some advice to get you set up to start off, because the start of the season is where you really need to do well.
That's right. All righty, let's go back. So one other player I got stats on here, because I didn't want to talk about Papenhausen, because I don't want to talk about him, so I want to keep him to myself. I'll give you some stats. I'm not an asshole. But little pod move here, potentially having a goalkeeping centre. So I like the idea of going Nick Meaney. It's a bit of a risky move. Whenever you're paying above 600,000 for a winger, I believe, or a centre, it is a bit risky. But I like it. I feel like it's a bit safer with Nick Meaney. He has a pretty decent average. You're paying pretty hefty for him. up at 619,000. Against the Eels, the average is 50.4. Against the Panthers, 41. 55.5 against the Dragons and 57 against the Raiders. So a little bit risky to go him, but I think there is a bit of safety at the same point with the goal kicking there. If we think that team is going to go fire like we think they are, I really think that there's going to be a lot of goal kicks to be made. And I think Meany, if he keeps it kicking, I think he's done the job to keep it. And Puppy might want to focus on staying injury free. But I like the option.
Yeah, Meany's probably one of those players you can pick up a bit later on as you build cash. As you start to fill in the gaps on your side, he's definitely one, any one of those goal kickers, like Holmes, Lomax, Garrick, Meany, they're always beautiful to have in your side because if they score big in a game, he scores well just based on, and he's always in and around it, isn't he? Just at his goal kicking, there's a lot to love about the guy. I really love Pappenhausen, and I don't want to talk too much about him. I've got 3 gun fullbacks at the moment, but I'm still tempted to get rid of one of them and go down to Longy because it actually enables me to really pump another second row, another centre wing, by doing that. And I don't hate that. You can make up the points elsewhere. And the one I'm thinking about punting is Ponga because, like I said, Pappenhausen, I don't want to oversell him. I think you should stay away from him, everyone, but he's, do it at your own peril.
Yeah. I was thinking about this the other day, and I was talking to a couple of the boys in one of the chat groups there. So, I think that with a 3-gun fullback option, I think it's probably, and I say that this is my theory anyway, that it could be a lot safer to do that, knowing that if Longy goes good, you can drop one of your fullbacks, get him, and then pick up the other later on. If he goes crap, you kind of a little bit screwed there. You have to sacrifice one of your good players to try to get him back again. So that's why I'm going that way, I think. But it's hard.
Can I add on to that?
It's hard not to go a bottom dollar cheapie in fullback, though, isn't it? But yeah, go.
Yeah, but can I concur with your way of thinking, and I'll tell you why. It's easier to trade down than it is to trade up. And there's been years, people remember a couple of years ago, I can't even remember, Feeney, was it? There's a couple of them where we all started a second fullback that was a bottom dollar. He got injured the first game. That stuffs you up. The only thing you can do in a situation like that is move one of your centre wings down into that position if they're a fullback dual, and then you have to end up selling one of those to be able to make up to get one of the guns. So I actually, that's the mindset I have, Dan. Start 3 guns, try and get away to a good start, and then if one of them's not firing, Longy is, drop down to him, and then I can get the money into wherever I've missed out on. So I'm not going to be as reluctant to hold those bloody boosts as I did last year. I thought I was doing so well by round 5 by not using any of them, and that's just not the way to go. I don't think it's get full on with the money.
I had a really good decent start last year, so I was sitting around the 1500 rank mark for the first half of the season, and then I ended up doing terribly at the end because I was trying to save those trades and save those boosts at the end. So I think I did in the first 5 rounds, I think I used 3 of my boosts. I wanted to try and build that cap. And it worked really well for me. But then I was like, I need 2 for the rest of the year. I need 2. And I kept those 2 for so long. And it kind of was to my peril. You can see it going downhill from the score. So I don't mind keeping the 2. But yeah, I think it's probably good to not worry about the boosts as much.
I had a horror start in injuries, and it can really cripple you because what it does when you have to do trades in positions that you've no choice on, you might want to go somewhere else, but you can't because you've got a forced trade to replace. And for me, 2 years in a row, it's been my front row. I've actually been hammered in the front row 2 years in a row. So I'm spending up this year instead of down. I remember it was Lodge the year before last. I can't remember who it was last year, but I had 2 of them in a row, and it's just frustrating to start because the season starts. It's like BBL, mate. I cannot get a good first round score, and then I always come home down to about 200-300 rank, and it's like I just feel like if I get kicked off just once in NRL or BBL, look out. And the 1 year I did, I sat 20 all year until I tried to be tricky and sold Tedesco. I sold Latrell Mitchell and Tedesco together because everybody above me had them 2. And in the next game, Latrell put Teddy in for 3 tries. Teddy put Latrell in for 3 tries. I went from rank 13 to 660 in 2 rounds. I was gutted. And it's still ranked. I've had ranks in the top 100, but I still rate that my best year. Just a bad finish. Yeah.
Someone just takes one bad decision, unfortunately, but it's not. I wouldn't call it a bad decision. I think it was a calculated decision that didn't work out. So you knew what you were doing. You were unlucky.
But what Dan said a minute ago, guys, really listen to him, because it's an important thing. It's easier to trade down than it is to trade up. So if you get stuck with those, a lot of people get these ones might play cheapies and have them on the bench. You can find them players stuck on your bench for the entire season. Try and either nuff out completely or just don't. Be smart about your trades and be smart about what you start with, so you don't have those forced trades early.
100%. There will be some green dots you might see at the start of the year. And when I say green dots, I mean players selected in the starting lineup that I reckon what we'll do, Glenn, after the TLT, or we're doing our podcast on TLT that night. We'll list
or the night after.
We'll list all the green dots to avoid. There'll be players like
that's a good idea.
There'll be players like Tamale from the Raiders who should get a spot, but he's only filling in for Hopewadi while he's staying in Australia to look for the birth of his child. There'll be players out there that are just holding that spot, so they're the wait and see. They can, like you've seen it before. Those players in the past have played so well, they've stolen that spot, but they're still a wait and see because it's way too risky to be. It's hard to get rid of them once you got them. So.
And they're the frustrating ones in Supercoach. I see it happen in BB all the time. People put all their money in the field, and because they've got no money, they buy someone on the bench, and that player on the bench has a really good start, so they buy themselves a couple more games. And it's so frustrating because everything in my head says like they bat 7 and they bloody bowl 2. It's just madness, and it's the same in NRL. They're sitting on the
Tim
bench.
David right there. He'll bat 7, bowl 2, and go nuts.
And same as in the NRL, they're sitting on a bench. They're likely to play 15, 20 minutes. A player gets bloody injured and he comes on and plays 55, 60 and gets the next game because the guy's out for 2 rounds. It's like you can't buy that kind of luck. But I don't like to run the gauntlet on that.
100%. I think one of the players last year a lot of us got stuck with was I think it was last year or the year before, but Tua Picky it was last year. He started off playing, I think it was fullback for a little bit. That was an injury. A lot of guys grabbed him, and then CNK came back, and then we all had this $230,000 sort of win we couldn't get rid of. And I had him the whole year. Then he came back and scored well for me, so I was okay.
Yeah, I had. One of my favourites that I had a few years ago was Burr for the Warriors at lock. I started him at the beginning of the season, and it was really funny. When it got down to around 8 or 9, he was the most bought in. At his price point, it was like 650K people were paying for him, and that's what he was. He was averaging 65, 70. He was a great player to have at 230, 300, 400, but to pay that up for him, it was madness. So Tyro and I were laughing to ourselves, like everyone's bringing him in.
Love it. All right, Glenn, anything else we want to talk about before we finish up for the night?
No, I just want to say thank you again to our sponsors. They are such beautiful people to come in. I mean, Mel she was happy. She said 500 enough, Glenn. I said, yeah, that'll do, mate. She was so willing to help, like just a lovely woman. And same with Carly, so, they're just lovely people. If you're in the Blue Mountains, join the Blackstone Gym Plus Fitness. They're just beautiful people. And don't forget to join our overall, man, $500. It's free to enter. And you win a ring as well. I mean, there's not many out there paying that much cash. I think there's only one I know of that's paying, more or the same.
That's right, guys. So 208753 is that code. So jump in overall league there with your chance to win $500. And I love that option that we thought of having that single highest score as well, because you can have the worst year all you want, but still focus on trying to get that big score and still win some cash out of it. So 208753, jump in, guys. So I just want to quickly.
One more thing quickly before I forget. If you want to play cash leagues this year, the Tragics run the most cash pages, always do. Just come on and see Brod. Brod always pays. He's straight away, everyone gets paid. Sometimes it might take a couple of days because he's got a lot of cash comps, but it's well organised. Everyone gets paid. And, hey, chuck in $50 and win yourself 1,000 or 500, whatever it is, I just did it in BBL, went through undefeated, lost 1 game, free cash. What more can you ask for?
Yeah, love it. So on Saturday night, or we might reschedule whatever we do, but we'll let everyone know what we do. But next podcast will be on the weekend. We've got Panthers and Parramatta, so it's a few options in there. The Western teams there. I don't know why I paired such a crap team with my Panthers. I don't know what I did that for, but maybe it's the PP alphabetical order thing happening. But Panthers and Parramatta next podcast, guys. Yeah, tune in, guys. Anything else, Ben, before we head off?
Yeah, just quickly, what day are the games on? So the Indigenous game's Sunday.
Oh, I'll be able to get it up now. I think it was Saturday, I'm pretty sure, this game.
That day, I hope so.
So the All-Stars game is on the Saturday. Yeah, so Saturday at 8:10.
So we'll do the pod Sunday, bro, so we can talk over that game because there's a lot of players of interest in that game and as well as in some of them other games that are named bigger squads. So if you're okay with it, Sunday's good for me as well. I'll have to record Married at First Sight.
Oh, I thought I liked this guy, that viewer. There was a viewer, right? We helped him with a question earlier. I'm not sure if I regret helping him now because it looks like he's a Tigers fan too, mate. So I need to.
Oh, Derek's a friend of mine. Is that Derek Silent? Hey, that's one of my friends. He's come and joined my page just to get involved. Good on you, Derek. Yeah, you message me, bro. We're friends. I'll help you out. I'll show you dance.
All right, guys. Thanks again for tuning in. This will go on Spotify as well. So if you don't want to see our faces, you can jump onto Spotify and see that. But thanks, guys. Peace out.